I've tried to film a video like this for the last couple of years. I want time travel, I want mindfuckery, I want to be confused, I want entirely weird, conjured up realities, I want all of that. In 2022, I watched a total of, drumroll please, here are the TV shows and movies that I watched and I loved in 2022. 53 different unique television shows and 23 movies. Now I feel like I should just include here, none of these, or not all of these, were things that were brand new in the year. They're just things that I chose to watch in this year. So they're not all, 2022 premieres or whatever. Some people read books, I do movies and TV shows. So I've got the full list here because I like to keep track, and I've done this for several years now. And it's just interesting to see because I'll keep track of the same shows for a really long time, or I'll discover one and watch it in its entirety in like a month. And in the pandemic, I just destroyed a lot of TV shows and watched in its entirety because I needed something to watch and consume to distract me from the world. I've kept up with all of the Star Wars and all of the Marvel things ongoing, so every single thing that has come out with those I have watched. So if I'm not mentioning it, it's just because other things I find are more noteworthy. But yeah, honestly, that's the biggest thing that I feel like I needed to mention. I'm not going to review every single movie and show, but I'm going to talk about the ones that I enjoyed the most and honorable mentions and things that I think you should consider watching as well. And I recommend a lot of these to my friends anyway, because some of them are massive wastes of time and some of them are mind-breaking and amazing. Start off in January. I'm gonna go in order by month because that's how I have it written out. I started the new year off pretty strong, wanting to watch with a pretty open mind, and I wanted to watch something good. So I had seen Dopesick on Disney+. I am a fan of Michael Keaton, and I did really enjoy the show because I had not truly understood what led to the opioid crisis. That show was very educational because it was all based on a true story. So I would really highly recommend watching that. Disenchantment, totally different. On Netflix, it's the 4th season that they've made this animated series, and it's the same guy who created The Simpsons, Matt Groening, I think is his name. And it is just incredible. I really enjoy animated adult television shows like that. So I've been watching that every single part when it's aired on Netflix because those voices bring a lot of nostalgia for me. It's the same cast. A lot of them are very familiar from Futurama, which I loved. So I really enjoy this show. They've been building a lot in the first couple of seasons, and I think now stuff's finally starting to happen, which is really, really cool. And I hope that there's another season coming out in a few months or so. There should be one. They usually drop it pretty consistently in the first quarter of every year. I watched the limited series Inventing Anna as well in February, and it was really interesting. Also based on a true story. Didn't know what I was expecting with that, but it was kind of nuts because somebody actually was able to do all of those things. So it's kind of crazy when you go through them. And then there was a lot of feuds in the real world about the people who play those characters. Would recommend as well if you need something to blow through really quickly and binge watch. March, I watched Bridgerton. I've watched every season of Bridgerton. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea, but I enjoy it. There's going to be a lot of stories coming up potentially if people still get behind these family stories that they're doing, because there's a book for every child, I believe, and that's kind of what they're basing each season off of. So we focus on each child and their stories and finding love and fitting in with society, and I'm a fan. Snowpiercer. I never watched the Snowpiercer movie with Chris Evans from back in 2013, I think is when it was, but it's a similar concept, and it's just it's crazy. Classism, the whole thing. You've probably heard of it, or you've probably heard what it's about. And honestly, the first season, crazy violent. Not my cup of tea, but I stuck through it to get through kind of the plot development and the story and the people and just the arc we've taken through. And the show has come so far in a couple of seasons. It's crazy. The final season, I think, is season 4, and it's supposed to be coming out pretty soon. I'm hoping it's going to be before or around March of this year, 2023. So I'm hoping that we get to see that pretty soon because it's really built and developed really, really well with these characters. And I really like the cast, honestly. It's really, Daveed Diggs is really great. In April and May, I watched 4 seasons of Doctor Who. So that's kind of a big, I had not kept up with it since college. So I finished the last Capaldi season, and then I watched all 3 seasons with the female doctor, and I enjoyed it. I know it wasn't for everybody, but I didn't feel like I was wasting a bunch of time. I know it's probably some of the weaker seasons they've had in most people's opinions. I thought that the villains looked very, very strange in the Flux show with crystals and whatever, but I watched it all and it was good. I needed something to pass the time, and it sure did the trick. Moon Knight. Moon Knight was fun because getting to watch Oscar Isaac play a lot of different accents and a lot of different versions of himself was kind of fun. I honestly thought it was really, really good. The trouble is when I watch week to week, it's really, I have to really think back and analyze it, because most shows, when I have my first impression of it, is because I have access to the entire thing and I get to watch it all the way through with continuity, versus having to watch an entire show over the course of 2 or 3 months and trying to remember like where we've come from in that time. So I did enjoy Moon Knight. It was probably the more violent of the Marvel things that they've released, because Moon Knight is incredibly violent, even from the comics. So it was definitely a change in pace, but like, it was fine. It wasn't too bad. I'm a big fan of medical dramas, and I always have been. So I have tracked and followed New Amsterdam and The Resident since they became shows. And I used to watch it with my friends in college, especially The Resident, because New Amsterdam's a little bit newer. And they're both in their final seasons that are going to end sometime in January or February. I watched a season of each of them in May and got that caught up, and now I'm actually currently in the middle of watching the current seasons that are airing, and I held a lot of episodes from when they aired in September so I could watch them all with some continuity now to be able to follow through with the season finales that are going to be fast approaching. So really enjoy those 2 shows. I'm just a fan of medical dramas. However, I've never been a fan of Grey's Anatomy, so I've watched a lot of medical dramas and I really, really love them. The next one is The Boys. Okay, insanely violent. This show, like, I watched the first episode, and if you've seen it, you'll know what I'm talking about, but like, there was an explosion and it was a lot. I got a little nauseous after it because it was so graphic and so gross, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. So a lot of the times when I watch it, I have to look away, but it is interesting because the entire concept of it is people have superpowers. And human nature being what it is, it's very likely that if people had superpowers, they'd act less like the Avengers and like the DC Justice League, and more so probably closer to more villains acting in their best interest, super enhanced people like that, and they're not actually these altruistic beings that actually care about the common good. They're more so acting in their own manner and what will benefit them. So I think it's really interesting because that is probably what people would do if they had powers. But that's my take. So, and just be ready. It's quite graphic and it's quite gross at times. It's not always for me, but I'm invested in the plot enough that I really do want to know what's going on and how it all ends. In June, finished some pretty good ones here in June. Peaky Blinders, the final season 6, was really good. Also a really violent show, but most people when they watch it, they'll probably already know that. And I really like Cillian Murphy, so I really enjoy watching him. And I really enjoy just like the entire cast. It's a good show. It's a really good show. And they ended it really well. I think, in my personal belief, they usually only focus and have 6 episodes of each season, and they really, really hone in on telling a deep story, and they really just get to it. Which I appreciate, and it really was very strongly done at the end. So yeah, it's just gangsters in Birmingham, England, and it's good. If you are looking for something like that to watch, it's a little bit violent, but has a lot of interesting storytelling, and like goes into like gangsters even from the 20s and like the 19-teens, that will be your cup of tea. Umbrella Academy. Holy shit. When we found this show a couple of years ago, I was like, I love this. Like, oh my God. Like, you know when you watch a show and you're like, that's for me. Like, I saw Travelers a couple of years ago too, the Netflix series, and I was just like, this is for me. Like this, if you want to know what kind of shows I want to watch, it's that. And I watched Umbrella Academy and I was just like, oh yeah, this is it. This is love this. There's going to be a season 4 and that's going to be the final season, so I'm excited for whenever that happens. But yeah, honestly, season 3, especially the opening, there's like a funny dance number that I feel like people may have seen if you just were on the internet during the summer when this show came out. It was very, very good. Yeah, big fan of it. It's very meta, time travel-y, sci-fi, crazy people with powers, but like, again, that's me and that's what I wanted, so it was perfect. And okay, we're to August now. The Sandman was like a not limited, it was like a really short series that it seemed like they were telling a lot of stories. I didn't know about it when I started. I was like, this might not be for me. And as I started watching it, I was like, oh, I'm liking kind of what the stories they're going with are. I thought they were going to wrap up a couple storylines that they didn't wrap up in the first season, that they left open, but fortunately it was renewed to tell more stories, so that's really nice. Tales of the Jedi is one that I really wanted to highlight because, as I said, I watch a lot of Star Wars. I wish there had been more content in the Tales of the Jedi because basically, if you've seen it or if you haven't seen it, they're telling stories that haven't been told yet, or they're filling in some of the gaps that you want to see more of, but not making a whole show around it. So they really honed in on the backstory of Count Dooku and his entire transition to the dark side phase, if you will, and just where he was coming from and where he was at, because he's a really interesting character and he's a really cool villain that you see, but he's got a lot more going on than that. So it was really cool to see that. And there was also more about Ahsoka, who's going to have her own live action TV show coming out at some point in the next year or so, I think. And it was really, I think it was really well done. I just wish there were more of it, because it would have been really cool to see more of that. But they're just trying to fill in the gaps, and that's just how it goes sometimes. Inside Job season 2. Funny enough, I'm rewatching that right now. So Inside Job, there was a first season of it last year. It's quite good. It's very, it's a cartoon as well. Basically, like, the whole world is being run by something called the Deep State. And so it's like they control all the conspiracies in the world and all of the, I don't really want to spoil a ton of it, but there's like flat earther episodes and like random things like that. And it's all just being run by like a group of people in like a building in Washington. So it's funny. And I would recommend it a lot. Andor. Remember how I mentioned all the Star Wars stuff? Andor did it. Andor was impressive. If you've seen Rogue One, you know the story of Cassian Andor, or at least where he became a big active part of the Rebel fleet. And if you watch Andor, which will have multiple seasons, by the way, you will learn more about his backstory and how he ended up becoming just a regular person trying to survive in the Empire-run galaxy versus someone who really fought to take it down, and how he kind of transitioned into becoming a rebel, like a full-on rebel. So really good, really well done. It was one of the better ones, because I didn't mention Obi-Wan because I wanted Obi-Wan to be better, but I did watch Obi-Wan in June. The way that they portrayed the ISB in Andor made them horrifying, and there was no comedic relief at all in this show, because it was a dark show, as it should have been. And I thought that Obi-Wan was going to do more of that because they had Vader, but the story they told in Obi-Wan was fine for where it was. It needed to be, you know, a Leia Obi-Wan kind of dual story, but there was very little Darth Vader in it. So I really enjoyed, as much as it's to say, it felt scary again. Like, Empire-run galaxy felt scary, very uncertain, very not good. So Andor did a really good job of that, and I'm really looking forward to season 2. 1899. This was a Netflix show that was popping up for me while I was in peak event prep like for October, and it was just like crazy event season. And I was like, you know what? Like, I just need to compile a list of shows that I want to watch when my event is done in November. So I had compiled my list for November, and a lot of it wasn't coming out until the second week of November. So Inside Job and 1899 were shows I consumed very quickly the weekend after my event when they came out, because I needed something to do. Another show, like I mentioned earlier with Umbrella Academy, if you want to know what kind of show Alicia wants to watch, I want to be mind fucked. I truly do. I want time travel. I want mind fuckery. I want to be confused. I want entirely weird, conjured up realities. I want all of that. So 1899, I can't explain much of it without spoiling things. So I'm not going to, but it's 1899 and they're on a ship. And it's confusing, and you're gonna love it if you love conspiracy and mind-shattering things. So watch that if you want your mind fucked. December, I, like everybody else who watched it probably in Canada because it was #1 for a very long time, watched Wednesday. And I've gone as Wednesday Addams for the last 2 years for Halloween, and I didn't know that they were making a show about her because I just thought it was an easy costume to do, truthfully. Jenna Ortega, brilliant. Also, her social media following in the week after that show came out was ridiculous. Like, I was watching those trends and I was like, this is insane. She like quadrupled her following in like a week, like gained over 10 million subs in like 7 days. That's insane. I didn't watch any new movies I didn't realize in January and February, so we're just gonna jump straight into March. I watched The Adam Project and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it a lot. Another Ryan Reynolds film, and a lot of it was filmed here. I actually saw a lot of the drones filming when they were doing it a couple of years ago, and it was pretty cool because it was in Jackpool Plaza by the Cole Harbor. So I had recognized the filming and the scenes and all of that. And then when I watched it, it was cool because it was Vancouver, right? The scene was set there. And it's quite short too. Like, it's not gonna take up a lot of your time. Knives Out. I hadn't had an opportunity to see this earlier because I didn't have access to it. I really had fun with it. Like I did enjoy it a lot, and it was you know, it's a murder mystery, so those are always fun. Watched both Wonder Woman's and the Justice League. August was just the month I just wanted to watch a bunch of stuff, I guess, so I pulled all those out of the stops. In September I watched a movie with my dad called Archive, and I had never heard of it. It was like a smaller scale movie, but I really liked it, and I can't, like, that's another like kind of mindfuck movie, so just like I'd watch it if I were you, because I feel like it's one that'll kind of get you at the end and you'll be like, oh, wow, and it's good. So I can't say much about it because the entire thing is just kind of like a mystery, and if I say anything about it, it's just gonna entirely ruin it, so I won't. Enola Holmes 2, that movie was really, really good. I liked the first one. I thought the first one was good, and I thought this one was better. Like, this one I really enjoyed the entire story, because it was also based on a true story of like match factories, and like the character was a real person. Like, I love those. Oh my god, this one was horrifying. The Good Nurse, horrifying. Eddie Redmayne is scary. I knew that something like this had happened. I just didn't realize that this was the story that they were telling until I started paying attention. I was like, oh shoot, this is scary. In December, the two movies that I watched, I really enjoyed. I watched Amsterdam, that had that bonkers cast with, you know, Christian Bale and Margot Robbie and Taylor Swift, super random, but yeah, Rami Malek, Anya Joy, I can never remember her name either, but really good cast. I liked it a lot, and I would recommend watching it because it's just good. Like, I just like watching strong casts like that also interact and like not really know where it's going. It's another kind of murder mystery style show or movie, so it's important. Also based on a true story. Oh, and Robert De Niro. So yeah, also based on a real thing that happened. It's very glorified, like, but it's worth it, I believe. And finally, I watched Glass Onion, which was another Knives Out mystery, because I watched the earlier one. I watched the first one earlier in the year, and then the second one came out on Netflix or Disney, and I just decided that I wanted to watch it. So those were my movies and videos and etc. for the year, and TV shows. I know this video is really long. I have always wanted to do this though, and I know it's gonna be long, and I don't really care, because I feel like I love watching TV and movies, and I feel like there should be something to show for it like this, which is just me being able to talk about them, because I enjoy spending my time doing this, and I love some of the stuff I've watched and getting to share and recommend things to people, because it's just something I enjoy. So thank you for watching this video, and I hope if you have any questions or comments about any of these things and made it to this point, which most people won't have, it will be something that has helped you figure out what next show you want to watch. And even if it's not available in your country on like Netflix or Disney, you'll be able to find somewhere where it's accessible, because a lot of countries have things in different areas. Like, a lot of stuff I have on Disney here, my parents don't have on Disney in the US. They'll have it on Prime or somewhere else. So find a place to watch it and whatever you can access, and I really hope you enjoy watching some of these things that I've enjoyed as well. If you're interested in any of the other stuff I watch too, I can share a photo of this as well, because it's really something I enjoy spending my time doing. Bye!